Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I want to talk about boss rushing. But not only boss rushing, I also wanted to figure out if Apex Sentinels are actually worth it. Because if you ask anyone, people will just tell you that red and blue ones are pretty nice to use, but yellow ones are pretty much useless. No one is using them. And if there is one strategy that Apex Sentinels would actually be useful for, that would be the boss rushing strategy. So that's why I wanted to test them doing this specific strategy. But before I talk more about the Sentinels, let's talk about boss rushing itself, what basically that means, in case you don't know what it is. So boss rushing is just strategy, just as the name says. You simply just rush to the boss, kill it, and go out. And that's it. You pretty much don't clear anything in the map, you just focus on being as fast and as efficient as you can be, just kill boss and that's it. And you might think, why would that be worth it, just killing boss? Where are basically the rewards? So the main reward that you're gonna get is basically getting the invitations, basically Searing Exarch or Eater of Words. You can even go for Maven, but probably one of them. And on average around 25 maps, because you're also gonna use this passive, so 10% chance to get double progress. On average 25 maps, you're gonna get one invitation. And invitations right now are worth more than 200 C. And if you're gonna buy maps for up to 7 C, on average you're gonna make probably around 50 C profit per invitation, which obviously doesn't sound that much, but that basically is gonna cover whole cost of the maps and gives you some additional profit. So what are the other stuff that you're gonna get from boss rushing? Well, first of all, Guardian maps. So you're gonna drop a lot of Shaper, Elder, Conqueror maps, and even some Synthesis, but to be honest not that many of them, but still you can drop Cortexes, which are worth around 2 exalts right now. Second thing is map drops have chance to be duplicated, which basically will give you a chance to duplicate Guardian maps. And I went for all of the small passives for that thing, except for this one, because it's in a bit awkward position. So in total I have 18% chance that the maps will be duplicated. Obviously on top of that, that means you're gonna drop just regular maps from map bosses, and they also have a chance to be duplicated, but these are gonna be just some random maps, so they are not really gonna be worth that much, but still you can sell them in bulk, probably for like 3 to 4 C. But generally you're gonna mostly sell the Guardian maps. Another thing is Atlas missions, so you can take this and this to just get Alva and Yun missions and later use them for some other strategies. Because if you're gonna do Yun strategy, the sextants to get guarantee Yun are decently expensive, so you're gonna save some money if you want to do that strategy later. Also you can go for this one and this one, and they basically will give you some additional rarity and unique items drops, which to be honest is not that great, but at least it is something. So that's basically the base of boss rushing. You just kill the map boss, go out, and that's it. But you can also add some additional stuff to basically do a little bit more than just killing map boss, and you would basically add stuff that are very fast to do. So for example, essences, you can just kill them on your way. You can also do seance with sextant that makes every possessed monster drop scarab, up to 3 scarabs per map. You can also hunt for some free harvest passives. You can even go for smuggler caches. And even altar. If you have some kind of build that deals damage automatically, when you're gonna run to the boss, on your way you're gonna spawn some altars, which are gonna give you some additional loot from bosses. For example, bosses drone gonna drop additional like 3 to 4 scarabs or divination cards, currency, and so on. So this can also be useful. But for this particular test, I wanted to mostly just test the Apex Sentinels. So I decided to just go for the base strategy, which is just killing map boss. I went for all of these passives, but to be honest, I didn't have anything else to go for. I think in the whole test, and I did 300 maps, I clicked maybe like 3 altars, so not that many, and I would say I found the essence on my way to boss maybe like 1 in 10 maps, so not that many. And my map of choice was City Square, and the reason for that is it is first of all very small map. Map boss is very close to the entrance, so you're gonna do this map very fast. But there are also obviously a lot of other maps that are like that. For example, Mesa, which has a boss in the middle and is also very fast. But the other reason why I chose City Square is that because it has 3 bosses. And when you are using Apex Sentinels, as you can see, this one, for example, empowers 4 enemies. And because I'm using this passive, which gives additional rewards, but Sentinels can only empower unique enemies. They can no longer empower rare enemies, so you need to empower bosses. This is why I went for the city squares, to basically, instead of just empowering 1, I'm gonna empower 3 of them, so 3 rewards instead of 1. Obviously, in case of this one is gonna be wasted, but you can't really do anything about that. And I guess even 2 are gonna be wasted because you have this passive, which gives Epic Sentinels can empower even 1 more enemy. But there are actually 2 ways you can increase the amount of bosses in a map. First way is through this passive. You basically will have 20% chance that the boss will be duplicated. So if you are doing City Square, instead of 3 bosses, you're gonna have 6. So if you are using, for example, this Sentinel, you're gonna have 5 empowers thanks to this passive. So you're gonna empower 5 of them, and 1 is gonna be just a normal one. But there's also a second way, which is rolling this modifier. Area contains 2 unique bosses, which basically also means bosses will be duplicated, so there's gonna be 6 of them. And when I rolled my maps, and this is actually the main reason why I decided to roll the maps with alchemy, because without it you can just run them white. So I can get this mod. So when I actually had some sentinels with 5 or 6 empowers, I decided to go for duplicated bosses, and in around 100 maps I would get around 10 of these modifiers. I didn't roll like reroll the maps just to get this mob on all of them. It's just if I got it, I got it. In terms of other sentinel passives, I, as you can see, went for just fully yellow ones, so you can only empower bosses but 30% more rewards, 20% for a double reward but bosses have onslaught, 20% increase empowerment, magic rarity, sentinels would drop from monsters, more sentinel rewards, and I also actually went for the rewards are more likely to be less common. And this is a bit, I would say, controversial one, because from what I've heard, a lot of people that are doing red and blue sentinels say that this is not worth it. You are actually getting less rewards with it. So what I decided to do is I made basically 3 tests. In each test I did 100 maps, and in the first test I did this without this passive, and I used, I believe, this one and this one. And in second one I went for this passive to basically see if it actually is worth it to use it. And the main reason I did it is because I actually did like 30 maps during my first test, and I noticed that I was very often, when I was getting 3 bosses, all of them were like armor, weapon and jewelry rewards, so I would get pretty much nothing. So I decided maybe this is actually worth to go for. And then on top of that I decided to make a third test, which is basically do also 100 maps but without Sentinel at all. Because when I was doing this with Sentinel, my build is actually not that great at killing bosses. Like, I am very fast, as you can see here, but I don't deal that much single targets. So killing bosses with Sentinels actually was taking a long time. So I wanted to see, basically to see if Sentinel is actually worth it. I also had to do 100 maps without it to see if when I'm doing maps faster, instead of doing them with this is maybe better. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to Sentinel is the Sentinel mods. So let's look at PoE DB and basically check what kind of modifiers you can get on Apex Sentinels. And to be honest, none of them are actually that great. And I think is the main reason why Apex Sentinels are worse than the other ones, because on the other ones you can get, for example, percentage chance that you're gonna get expedition rewards or something like that. So that's why they are nice. But here you can't get any modifiers like this. As you can see, there are just some cast speed, duration, empowers more enemies, which is decent, more charges is also decent. You get some auras, which is whatever. And the only decent one that I found are the increased quantity and increased rarity of items found. But to be honest, even they are pretty bad, because this does not actually increase the quantity of items you get from the Sentinel rewards. This is just base loot from the monster. So basically base loot from the boss. And bosses usually don't drop that much stuff, but I guess if you have both quantity and rarity, you're gonna get decent amount of uniques from the bosses, but most of the time they are gonna be useless. So they are actually not that great. The one that I actually went for is this one, basically 20% increased rewards, which is just okay. It's nothing too crazy, but at least it's something. There is also the 20 to I guess 35% increased the empowerment, which I believe also just increases the amount of rewards you get by a little bit. So these are basically two that I would go for, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter. You can just go for the base ones. So just to show you, here are all of the Sentinels that I used, and basically all of them have 20% increased rewards, and that's basically it. Okay, so now let me show you the example. So I'm gonna do City Square with 6 bosses and Sentinel with empowers 6 enemies and 20% rewards. So let's do that one. A nice thing about this strategy is also that you don't have to use any scarabs, nothing. You literally just run to the boss and that's it. So I'm basically just running to the boss. I found the essence on the way, then I would actually do the essence. I forgot the remnant. I would use the remnant right here, but I forgot about it. So let's kill the monster. If I didn't see this essence and there was basically no essence, I would just run to the boss and kill it. So now I'm gonna use my Sentinel. Bosses are gonna get empowered. And that's basically it. And as you can see, there's 1 Sentinel reward, 1 heist, and everything is useless. But yeah, as you can see, I don't have that great of a single target. It takes a little bit to kill them. It would be better to do this strategy on some kind of build that actually has good rewards. And as you can see, this is not the Sentinel reward. This is just the end of map boss reward. Just getting the Conqueror map. And this is why you are doing boss rushing to, not Conqueror, I mean Synthesis map. This is the main profit, one of the main profits from the boss rushing strategies. Okay, so now let's look at the profit. So these are 3 tabs of loot from 3 different tests, and again I did 100 maps in this one with no more common passive, 100 maps with that passive, and 100 maps without Sentinel. So obviously without Sentinel much less loot, but I basically did this test like twice as fast. If your build is good enough and you are killing boss in like 3 seconds with or without Sentinel, you probably would do all 3 of these tests in the same time. But again, because I wasn't killing bosses that fast with Sentinel, and without Sentinel they were dying much faster, I was doing this test much faster. And actually, just to show you, I'm gonna do another map, which is Mesa, because without Sentinels, you don't need to kill 3 bosses, and Mesa is a bit better map for boss rushing. So let me show you the difference between doing a map with Sentinel and without. So here, you literally just run up to the boss right here and kill this boss. Unfortunately, Oak is pretty bad for Toxic Rain because he just runs around, but as you can see, he died much faster than the previous 6 bosses. So yeah, that's basically the difference between these tests. Okay, so without passives and with passives, you can see there is a little bit more loot. So immediately you can see it's probably worth it to go with passive, but the question is how much worth was it? And also you can see that I did get much more Guardian maps, and I also did get 2 Cortexes in a test with passive and without passive. And this passive should not matter for the Guardian map drops. So basically what that means is that in this 100 maps I just got much more luckier. And as you can see here, I got pretty much similar amount of maps to first test. So when you're gonna see the spreadsheet, you're gonna see that I did 2 calculations, one with all of the loot and one just this loot without the Guardian maps, just to be fair and just compare the loot from the Sentinels. Okay, so let's look at the spreadsheets. So here is the calculations without passive, and nice thing about this strategy is that there is like no investment. You just buy maps and that's it. I didn't even include the cost of the Apex Sentinels because, to be honest, most of the people will just have a ton of them. As you can see here, these are by the way all of the Sentinels that I did drop from the test. I decided to not include them as the rewards because it is very RNG which ones you get. Most of the time all of them are not gonna be worth anything, but you can get some good ones, and I actually did get one of these, which is Pandemonium with tier 1 chance for expedition rewards and also tier 3 currency rewards, which I believe this one is worth around 2 exalts. So yeah, I did not include them in the test results and as the investment. And time was 1.5 hours. So all of the loot was 2000 chaos and Guardian maps 200 chaos without passive. So in total I was making 6x per hour. And if we exclude the Guardian maps, it was 5.2. With passive, basically the same calculations, I made 11x per hour, but that's counting Guardian maps. So as you can see, 11x per hour is definitely not the amount of money I should be making per hour. I definitely got lucky here, and that's why I decided to do the second calculation, which is without Guardian maps, which means I made 7x per hour just from the Apex Sentinels. So if you compare 2 of these, I still made 2x per hour more with passive. But on top of that, with passive, I did drop 2 exalts, and without passive, I didn't drop a single one, which might mean that I also got lucky with an exalt, but I can also confirm that I definitely did see more bosses with currency rewards on top of their heads in this test than this test, so technically I should have higher chance to get exalted orbs in the second test. Now let's look at the third one, which is without Sentinels, and as you can see 5x per hour. I was, as you can see, much faster, only 40 minutes is how much this test took me, but even without passives I still made 6x per hour, so a little bit less than without it. So if you are going for just a pure boss rushing strategy, Apex Sentinel looks like it's worth it to go to do it, but you need to do it in a map with 3 bosses, so with City Square. If you are gonna do some kind of boss rushing, maybe combine it with farming essences, doing some altars and so on, maybe harvest, then you probably don't really care about the Apex Sentinels, especially if you're gonna do it in a map with just 1 boss. It's not really gonna do that much. But if your build can kill bosses extremely fast, even with Apex Sentinels on them, even with 1 boss, I mean, you can just go for it. Why not? If you have a lot of Sentinels just laying around, you can always just use them. But in terms of farming them specifically, I think it is pretty nice strategy, but it limits you a lot. Again, you have to do it in city square, which is not that great for farming essences, not that great for getting altars before you kill the boss. So I am gonna do more different types of boss rushing strategies in the future. So I guess we're gonna see how much I'm gonna make from these tests, and we're gonna see if other types of boss rushing are better than this. But I predict that they are actually gonna be better. So in my opinion, Apex Sentinels is okay, it's fine. Use it if you don't have any, if you are not using a red or a blue one, but just specifically target farming them is not really that great in my opinion. Also, in terms of is it worth it to use the passive, this one, it looks like it actually is worth to go for it, because again, here I made 7x per hour, here I made 5 without guardian maps, but again here I dropped 2 exalts, so even if we remove like 340 C, which is 2 exalts, it's still a bit more than without passive. Even if it's just maybe RNG, maybe I got lucky here, it's at least the same. So if you can use it, why not? In my opinion, it actually is worth it, so go for it. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.